Welcome back to Red Hawk Media. After the last video that I posted about the iPhone 7 camera settings, there were a few questions about how I captured that video and what all went into putting it together. So I wanted to follow up on that. And I think this is twofold because we're going to talk about QuickTime, we're going to talk about screen capturing, your basic settings, and some considerations that you want. And we'll start off really basic and then we'll ramp up to something more advanced where it takes a little bit more editing and it's kind of like your main mode of instruction that you're using. It'll be great for people that are doing tutorials, teachers, educators, anybody that's sharing information that they want to be seen on their screen. They want to be heard. Maybe they want to be seen on their screen as well. And all those features are going to tie into it. So let's go ahead and get started here. First thing, you're going to be recording your screen. And these are some things you don't think about to begin with, and I know I did when I first got started. And you can see right now my screen's an absolute mess. It's a horror. So we're going to go ahead and clean that up. And I found one of the easiest ways to do that is I always create a folder that I just call clean. And it's really simple, and I just grab everything and I drag it right in there. And that seems to help me out quite a bit here. And let's go ahead and get that in there. And we definitely are not using that. Now I've got everything cleaned up at this point on my screen. It's a little bit more presentable. Now, the last thing that you probably want to think about is you got this background going on. Depending on what the purpose of your video is, who your audience is, and all that, you might want to choose a more corporate background, something like this. This relates to my video production classes that I teach, but I'm going to go ahead and change this up for our purposes. And we need to go to the system preferences anyway to take a look at a few things. The first thing we're looking at is we're looking at the desktop and screensaver. And if we're going to be presenting this video to a number of different audiences here, it's best to choose something that's semi-generic. You can pick whatever you want, of course, to serve your purposes, but for this purpose and for the purpose of the Multimedia Matters blog, I'm going to go ahead and put this on here. And now I've got a background that's a little bit more presentable for this sort of video. After that, the main concern that I have is your sound. You can do silent screen captures, of course, but audio adds a lot. It makes it a little bit easier to follow along. For my students, I know it's easy for them to zone out kind of while things are going on. They can still hear my voice. They don't necessarily have to watch everything on screen click by click, so they can kind of, tune out. So back to the system preferences here, the first thing that you really should think about is your sound setup. For the sound setup here, I've got a USB mic, which I'll put a picture of that up here. And you can see the USB mic. It's a really simple setup. It's a cheap mic. I think it was like $19.99, something like that. There isn't much to it. It's got a mic, it's got the headset, and it just makes things a lot more clean for actually recording. I started off recording talking to my screen, and it works. It's got a lot of echo to it. It doesn't sound the best, but you can do that. But I've got the USB mic, and then some basic settings here. You've got your input volume going on. If you are softer spoken, you might want to adjust that. But you definitely should experiment with these levels so that you know you're being picked up, so that you know that your hard consonants aren't always tipping the meter over the top, and tipping the meter over the top. Talk about a lot of hard consonants there. So that's the other thing is you probably want to adjust your microphone itself, make sure it's about chin level, make sure it's away from your mouth, make sure you're not talking directly into it, which is kind of a rookie mistake that people make. Should be kind of talking over the top of it. At any rate here, we've got our sound set up for the input. The output's not going to really matter to begin with because you're not really going to hear anything while you're screencasting. So system preferences are all set up at this point. The next step that we're going to take is we're going to actually open up QuickTime. QuickTime is what we're going to use to actually do the screen capture. And I have QuickTime right on my dock because I use it all the time here. And here's your icon for it. If you don't have QuickTime on the dock, you can go ahead and do a spotlight search. You just go ahead and click on the spotlight and then QuickTime, and that'll bring up your QuickTime Player. Now, I'm already screencasting, so from here, I'm going to go ahead and just put up some still images of what's going on. After you open QuickTime, okay, you're going to have a window that pops up, like so. And this window is looking for you to actually begin a video. And this video, it would play through QuickTime and all that, but that's not our purpose for all this. So you can go ahead and click Done. Now from there, what you're going to do is you're going to go up to File. You're going to drop down the File menu, and you're going to see a plethora of options that are in there. Again, I'm screen recording, so one of them is grayed out, the actual one that I'm using right now. So you've got a new movie recording, you got a new audio recording, and you got a new screen recording, which is what I'm using. Now, after you click on New Screen Recording here, I'm just going to simulate this for you. You click New Screen Recording, and then you're going to get another pop-up window. Now this little pop-up window is important, and it's kind of misleading because it's like, oh, I'm just going to click the red button and get going here. But really, you should check out some of the settings there to make sure that, again, your audio is all set up, that you're recording the proper screen size, if you want to show the mouse clicks and all of those things. So let's take a look at a few of those features. First, you've got the little caret thing next to your record button. We're going to go ahead and drop that down. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that you have your input device selected for recording. So for me, it's the USB mic, so I go ahead and select that. And then after that, the only other feature that I really have to worry about is I want to make sure that do I want to show my mouse clicks as I'm going around navigating through certain programs. And sometimes that's really handy so people can see what it is that you're clicking on, draws their attention to your mouse. And in other situations, it doesn't really apply. So whatever your usage of this is, it's up to you. Last thing that happens is we're going to click record. Now when you click record, it's going to give you a start recording. If you click on the screen, it records the entire screen. Otherwise, what you can do is you can actually click and drag and choose an area of the screen that you want to record. So if you have a window open, let's say for instance, I have Photoshop. I'm opening up Photoshop, and I've got this window. Maybe I don't want this window to take up the whole screen here, so I'm going to go ahead and shrink this down. Okay, and maybe I only want to record just this window, which is very handy for, you know, fitting different pieces of video together, layering video on top of each other. If you've got a video editor that allows you to do that, it's very nice for that as well. So now I could go ahead and I could drag, and I'm going to simulate this with a screen capture. You can go ahead and drag over that window, and that's what it's going to record. Okay, so just to show you that. Now, I'm not using Photoshop. Once I click record, up in the upper right hand part of the screen, it'll zoom in here so you can see what's going on there. In the upper right hand part, you're going to see this button show up. Okay, this indicates that it is recording right now. If I click on it, it's going to stop recording. Now, I go ahead and record whatever it is that I want to record. I found probably the best thing to think about as you're doing all this, and I'll go back to my Photoshop example very quickly here, is if I'm going to use a window, and that window, if I'm recording just that window space, I don't really want to move it around a whole lot, because if I move it this way or that way and I selected that space of the screen, now I'm losing part of that window. Okay, if same thing goes for full screen. If I'm going with the full screen, and these are just some things that I figured out over the long run here to kind of help you out. If I'm going with the full screen, I'm just going to stretch this out like this so that I can still see my apps on the side. Once I get this all set and lined up, usually I do this ahead of time. So anytime I minimize something and then I bring it back, it's automatically the size that I want it to be while I'm screen capturing. And that just makes it a whole lot easier. That way if I have to like grab any files or anything like that, I know that I can go ahead and just minimize this, grab whatever I need from my desktop if it applies to my screen capture, and then I can always come right back to this window. Otherwise, if you're taking the window and you're moving it around like this and moving it around like this and like that, and you know, it gets really difficult to follow the instruction or whatever it is that you're doing. Now, another setup, one last thing, and this is starting to get into a little bit more, I guess, advanced options that you can have. You may have noticed that when I want to look at something, let's say we want to look at the toolbar over here, and I want to focus in on the crop tool. I'm zooming in on the crop tool here. I'm doing that while I'm recording. This isn't in post-production. I'm not creating the zoom in there. I'm doing it while I'm recording. And the way that's actually available is actually through some of the system preferences. And I'll show you that right now. This is an optional thing if you want to set this up. I think it helps a lot because if you want to like, oh, let's look at the layers over here. Now I can come in, take a good look at the layers, point at different stuff. You can actually read the text, and then I can zoom back out. And it's just a handy feature. So let's take a look at that. In the Apple up in the corner, we're going to go to System Preferences. And the System Preferences in here, one of the features that's really, really handy that a lot of people don't know about is actually accessibility. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Now, in accessibility, you're going to find one of the vision things that's available here is the zoom. Now, by default, there's no like zoom feature actually set up. So the way I've got it set up is I put use scroll gesture with the modifier key, and then I always choose control. Since I'm on a Mac, I'm not using control nearly as much, so it works for me to hold control and then I can zoom in. So if I'm holding control, I can use the little mouse wheel here, and I can zoom in to see exactly what it is I need to see. You can choose other buttons, of course, to help you out with this, but this is the most handy one. And this is great for just teaching in general. If you're putting stuff up on a projector, if you got to show stuff in detail, this is a great way to scroll in. If you've got anyone with any kind of vision limitations, and you need to show things a little bit bigger, or they themselves need to access stuff that's a little bit bigger, this is a great feature. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom back out. We're going to close that up now that we've got that set up. And when I'm done with my recording, what I'm going to do, this is probably the most iffy part of all of this with QuickTime, and I find like it scares me every time I do this, but I'm going to go up and I'm going to click stop, and I'm just going to simulate this for you. So I click stop. Once I've stopped, I get a pop-up window of my actual screen recording, and that pop-up window is going to show me what I recorded. Now, I've got a couple options here. I can play through it, make sure everything's good, check the audio, all that kind of stuff. I may not be editing this, so I may need to make sure that it's perfect. I myself, I make loads of mistakes, so I have to go back, cut stuff out, do like second starts, all kinds of stuff. You'll figure it out as you go. It takes a little time to put together a good screencast. And then after that, you're going to close this window. And that's the scariest part. So when you go to close the window, that's when it prompts you to actually save your video. And saving the video is just a matter of it becomes a .mov, and you can save it to any location that you want. If you've got a really large screen and you're recording in high definition and you're capturing all of that, the file size is going to be pretty considerable. This right now I'm on a 5K iMac, and the file size is going to be pretty large. But once I've got that, I've got the video. This is the end of the first part. In the next part, I'm going to show how to record yourself in addition to screen capture. And that'll allow you to connect to your audience. You'll be able to see them, they'll be able to see you, and that may be a feature that you're interested in. I also will show you how you can take that part then after saving the video, and you can drag the video into an editor like Final Cut Pro, and you can start doing some of the editing there. Just some of the basics. Alright, well thanks for joining us for another episode of Red Hawk Media. Bye.